What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and welcome to our first Burning Shadows deck profile that we're going to be doing here on the channel. And for this one, it's going to be Gardevoir GX. And if you guys did not see already, we did actually upload a video showing off this deck in action. So if you want to see that, I'll be sure to put a link to that as well. But yeah, so Gardevoir GX, definitely one of probably my personal favorite card out of the entire Burning Shadows set. So definitely been very anxious to start building something around this. But let's take a look at it and see why we are talking about Gardevoir. So we are playing 4 Ralt since this is a Gardevoir deck. And it is worth noting I'm choosing to play the one that was in Ancient Origins and or Breakthrough. Just because it does have a second attack. The one from Burning Shadows, I think it's like 10 damage and you heal 10. But this one just has an extra attack to do 20 for 1 more energy. So I feel like it's just better to have the additional option to attack with, but it probably won't be too relevant either way. Next up, 2 Kirlia, and this is the new one from Burning Shadows, just because it has some slightly better attacks. But then, of course, the star of the show, we have Gardevoir GX. So, like I said, my personal favorite card out of Burning Shadows, and that is because basically every stat on this card is amazing. So, the ability, first of all, Secret Spring. Once during your turn before you attack, you may attach a fairy energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. And this ability does stack, so if you have multiple Gardevoirs out, you can get down several attachments extra per turn. Which has synergy with its main attack, Infinite Force. For a fairy energy, it does 30 times the number of energy attached to both active Pokemon. So this is very similar to Tapu Lele, and of course before that, Mewtwo EX and Lugia EX. Mewtwo in particular saw just a ton of play for the longest time and was such a dominant card. But its attack only hit for 20 times. The Gardevoir is 30 times, and so it's just absolutely insane, as you can load up your Gardevoir with energy and keep swinging to do a ton of damage, basically. But then its GX move is also pretty solid as well. It has Twilight GX. For just 1 fairy energy, shuffle 10 cards from your discard pile into your deck. Pretty good, I'd say. You know, Decidueye has seen tons of play, and it's pretty well known that its Hollow Hunt attack is very good. You get 3 cards from your discard into your hand. Even though this doesn't go into your hand, getting 10 cards is absolutely insane. That's a sixth of your deck going right back in just with this one attack. So Gardevoir is a little bit of a slower deck in my experience playing this, but it is nice that you do have the option to use this attack if you want, and especially against Garbodor, this is very good because you can go very aggressive with all the item cards that you're playing, and then you can use Twilight GX at some point, get all of those items back into your deck. That way Garbodor can't hit you for as much damage. So again, just every stat on this card is absolutely great. 230 hit points is slightly below average for a Stage 2 GX, but nevertheless, it's still very solid. Metal weakness could be a problem with Metagross being popular at the time of filming, but who knows, that could be subject to change once Burning Shadows comes out. We'll just have to see. But then Dark Resistance, which is actually very solid. Zoroark at the time of filming is a very popular card. Then of course we have the new Darkrai GX that is releasing in Burning Shadows as well. So definitely it seems like a relevant resistance potentially. But again, mainly the attacks are what we're looking at it for. But then we're also playing 1 Gallade as well. Since Gallade does evolve from the Ralt's evolution line, it seems good to play one of these guys. So 150 hit points on a 1 prize attacker, very good. But its ability and attack are kind of the main reason we're playing this. Premonition, once during your turn before you attack, you may look at the top 5 cards of your deck, put them back in any order. So it does have synergy with another support Pokemon that we're going to get to in a second, but it's nice because it's kind of a consistency booster, and also its attack Sensitive Blade is very strong as well. For a Double Colorless, it is 60 plus 70 more if you played a supporter for your turn, so 130, 160 if you have a Choice Band attached to it. So just a very solid backup attacker. It can also one-shot things like Drampa GX, which is very popular currently as well. So just, like I said, a very solid backup attacker. And we can also hit for, Darkrai's for weakness and stuff like that too. So next up we are playing a 2-2 Octillery line. This is the support Pokemon I just mentioned. So like I said with Gallade, we can rearrange the top 5 cards of our deck and use Octillery's Abyssal Hand ability. Once during your turn before you attack, you may draw until you have 5 cards in hand. So like I said, just a nice consistency booster to choose what we want to draw with if we have our Gallade in play. But just in general, very solid. If we're missing a piece to our evolution combo, we can maybe use Abyssal Hand to, dig a little deeper, try to get that rare candy, or, whatever thing that we need for the turn. Also, too, late game, I think Octillery is very good as well. It makes you end proof. That way your opponent can't end you down to a low hand size. You can always just draw out of it. And in particular with this deck, I think it's very important to have a Pokemon like Oranguru or Octillery, because Gardevoir is very reliant on attaching energy from hand. So Octillery does help with that in the late game for sure. Next up we have 2 Tapu Lele GX, pretty standard inclusion for most decks these days. For its Wonder Tag ability, search your deck for a supporter whenever you bench a Tapu Lele GX. Also has the Energy Drive attack. It's kind of a nerfed version of Gardevoir, so 20 times the amount of energy on both active Pokemon. So still a very solid attacker if we do need an attacker to start swinging with while we're powering up our Gardevoirs. And then 1 Alolan Vulpix just to round out our Pokemon line. So we're playing it for its Beacon attack. For 0 energy, search your deck for 2 Pokemon and put them into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterwards. So this is nice in the early turns. We can kind of hide behind our Vulpix and search out some evolution pieces of our deck to start setting up. And you guys, that's going to be our whole Pokemon line. Going on to our trainer cards, we have 4 Professor Sycamore and 3 N. Kind of the standard, draw supporters that are the backbone of most decks. Also playing 1 Brigette, which is seemingly becoming increasingly more of a staple. So search your deck for 3 basics, put them all into your bench, or 1 basic EX and put it onto your bench. So ideally on the first turn, we can use Tapu Lele to grab our Brigette out of deck, and then maybe get 2 Ralts and a Remoraid or something like that just to start developing our board a little bit quicker. Next up we have 1 Skyla. Pretty good inclusion in most rare candy based decks. Search your deck for a trainer card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So this is good for, just helping get out our evolution lines. If we have a Gardevoir in hand but no rare candy, we can always just Skyla for the rare candy, or vice versa. If we have the rare candy but we don't have our Gardevoir GX, we can Skyla for the Ultra Ball that we need. It's just to help basically complete the combos that we need to get set up. Next up we have 1 Lysandre and 1 Guzma. These are kind of our, switching card options. So Lysandre you guys are plenty familiar with, but Guzma is a new card that we actually are getting out of Burning Shadows. The same effect as Lysandre, but you also get to switch with one of your bench Pokemon. So the reason I'm opting to play this over something like just a second Lysandre is that a lot of Pokemon in this deck just retreat for an awkward amount of energy. Gardevoir retreats for 2 energy, Gallade retreats for 2, Octillery retreats for 2. So there might be some situations where we really need to switch into something else, but we also still want a Lysandre for the turn. So Guzma can help fill that role a little bit. But it's also good because it will allow us to escape status conditions like Espeon's Psybeam that will confuse us. So just a solid switching card. Next up, 1 Hex Maniac. So until the end of your opponent's next turn, shut off abilities for both players. So this is very good because I think 2 matchups in particular this deck will struggle with are going to be Metagross GX, just for the the type advantage it has over our Gardevoirs, and then also Greninja Break as well. So with Hex Maniac, it will allow you some outs against those decks. I do think they are unfavorable matchups unless you want to tech otherwise against them. But just for right now, just playing the 1 Hex Maniac, and it's just a good card against a number of decks. And the last support we're going to be playing is 1 Fisherman. Put 4 basic energy from our discard into our hand. So very obvious synergy with our Gardevoirs. We can grab 4 basic energies, and then using Gardevoir's Secret Spring abilities, we can put them down in play and start powering up our attackers. Okay, moving on to our item cards, we have 4 Reverse Secret just to reuse all those different supporters we just mentioned. Also have 4 Ultra Ball just to search out any Pokemon we want out of our deck. 4 Rare Candy just to allow us to get our evolutions a little bit quicker. We get to skip our stage 1s and go straight to our stage 2s. So just to help get out our Gardevoirs and Gallades as early as possible. 2 Choice Band just to increase the amount of damage we're doing. So in my experience, a lot of times with Gardevoir, you're just like a little bit shy of taking a big one-hit knockout, and Choice Band will help that just because it allows you to do 30 more damage to EXs and GXs. Next up, 2 Floatstone. It's another tool card, give free retreat to whatever Pokemon it is attached to. So like I mentioned before, a lot of Pokemon in this deck have really awkward retreat costs. So Floatstone is going to help us with that. I think a consideration for this deck is Fairy Garden, but when I was building it, I only had 2 vacant slots left. And I felt like I didn't want to play less than 3 Fairy Gardens. So I was like, you know what? If I'm not going to play, more than 2, I'm just going to play Floatstone instead. But I do think there is a case to be made for Fairy Garden as well. So next up for our recovery options, we have 1 Super Rod and 1 Rescue Stretcher. So we're playing the split just because Super Rod gets us 3 energy from our discard back into our deck. Since we are trying to swarm our opponent with a ton of energy on field and to do lots of damage. And then Rescue Stretcher is also good because it gives us the flexibility of being able to get a Pokemon right back into our hand instead of shuffling 3 into our deck. So that's why we are opting for the split there. And the last trainer card is going to be 1 Field Blower. So choose 2 of not your opponents, but any tool cards or stadiums in play. But it's going to be mainly to deal with our opponent's Garbotox and Garbodors. Since if they have a tool card attached to their Garbodor, it will shut off our abilities, and we are incredibly ability reliant. The only Pokemon that doesn't have an ability other than our pre-evolutions is going to be Alolan Vulpix. So we definitely want some sort of out against Garbodor. And we can also use Twilight GX to shuffle it back into our deck if we need to reuse it again at some point as well. But then also we don't play any stadiums, so it is important we have a way to counter stadiums as well. And next up we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 basic fairy energies, and then 4 double colorless energies. So even though Gardevoir GX's attack does require fairy energy, it does not specify it has to be basic energy to do damage. So that means for every double colorless energy we attach, we're doing an extra 60 for turn. So if we throw down a double colorless and use Secret Spring to attach a fairy, we're doing a 90 base damage, not even counting our opponent's energies. So yeah guys, that is going to be our first look at Gardevoir GX. I do think there's a number of other cards we could potentially play in this list. A couple of other inclusions, like I mentioned, could be Fairy Garden. Stadiums in general, I do think this deck has a couple of options. Silent Lab is a consideration. In Japan, Gardevoir actually won a tournament over there and it played Silent Lab. So that's an option. Another option I think that's very underrated is actually Brooklet Hill. Just because we can grab Remoraid and Vulpix, and I think a potential good tech in this deck could be Sudowoodo, because this deck will struggle against Mega Rayquaza. Does not have a great Mega Ray matchup, I don't believe. And Sudowoodo can help with that. So if you're playing Sudowoodo and the Remoraid line and the Vulpix, I think you could make a case for Brooklet Hill to more easily set up your board. Like I said before, Greninja is kind of a sketchy matchup, so you could play the Giratina promo. You could play Oricorio to deal with Vespiquen. So I do think there's a number of options you can consider when building this deck. But like I said, this is just kind of our first draft of the deck. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And as usual, feel free to leave comments below. Let us know what you think about this. If there's any other cards you think we missed or you think we should have included, let us know. We want to hear your feedback as well. But yeah, guys, we definitely appreciate you watching. And stay tuned if you're new here, because we have a ton of Burning Shadows content coming up over the next couple weeks. So definitely be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our merchandise over at rarecandy.tcg.com. If you can pick up something, help support our channel, it'd mean a lot to us. But with that, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you for the next one.